In Hollywood, talking openly about your faith in Jesus is often seen as a major risk. It's a sad but real truth that when celebrities decide to speak about their Christian beliefs, they may face rejection, lose career opportunities, or even be completely pushed out of the entertainment industry. Fame, money, and success seem to come with an unspoken rule: keep your religious faith to yourself. But some stars refused to stay silent. They chose to speak up about their belief in God, even though it meant losing roles, agents, or millions of dollars. What they found, however, was something far more valuable than any career, something deep, life-changing, and eternal. Let's begin with Jim Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. Before that role, Jim was on the rise in Hollywood. He had already starred in big movies like The Count of Monte Cristo and was considered a leading man. He was respected, talented, and had a promising future in the industry. But then one phone call changed everything. Mel Gibson called Jim and asked if he wanted to play Jesus in a movie about the final hours of Christ's life. At first, Jim didn't realize how serious the offer was. He thought Mel was joking. But Mel quickly became serious and told Jim something shocking: "If you do this role, you may never work in this town again." Jim felt conflicted. He knew that accepting the role might end his career, but something inside him gave him peace. He felt that it was the right thing to do. He said, "We're all called to carry our cross. If you don't pick it up, you will be crushed by the weight of it." That powerful statement showed his readiness to give up everything for his faith. He wasn't just taking a role, he was answering a calling. The film was a massive success, earning more than $600 million worldwide. But Mel Gibson's warning turned out to be true. After playing Jesus, Jim found himself ignored by Hollywood. Big studios stopped calling. He lost 2 agents and even his lawyer. It was like Hollywood had turned its back on him overnight. Jim later said, "I didn't do anything wrong. I just played Jesus." That one choice changed everything, but Jim has never regretted it. He said he found comfort in his faith, even when his career was falling apart. During filming, Jim went through real suffering. He was struck by lightning, dislocated his shoulder, and nearly bit off his tongue while hanging on the cross in the movie. He said it pushed him closer to God because he had nowhere else to turn. He called it a spiritual transformation, not just a film. Today, Jim is preparing to play Jesus again in the sequel to The Passion of the Christ. Even though Hollywood tried to cancel him, Jim found something better than fame. He found peace, purpose, and a deeper connection to God. Now let's talk about Terry Crews, the former NFL player turned actor and TV personality. Terry is known for being funny, strong, and energetic. But behind the scenes, he was hiding a painful secret. Since the age of 9, Terry had struggled with pornography addiction. He kept it a secret for nearly 20 years, even from his wife. When she finally confronted him, it nearly ended their marriage. Terry described her response as heartbreaking. She told him she needed to leave, not because she stopped loving him, but because she needed time to heal. For Terry, that moment was devastating. He realized that all the strength he had on the outside couldn't fix the pain he had caused inside his home. That's when Terry made a choice that changed everything. He picked up the phone and called his pastor. It was something he said the younger version of himself would never have done. He had grown up in a strict religious home in Michigan, where showing emotion was seen as weakness. His father, an alcoholic, had taught him to hide pain and pretend everything was okay. But losing his wife, or almost losing her, taught Terry that true strength meant being vulnerable and honest. He realized that being like Jesus meant being both strong and open about your struggles. Instead of hiding his addiction, Terry went public. He told the world about his battle and encouraged other men to do the same. He said, "The more you try to hide it, the stronger it gets. But when everybody knows your issue, you sweep it away." That honesty helped save his marriage. Today, he openly credits his wife's prayers and his faith for helping them rebuild their relationship. Terry now hosts award shows and appears on television, but more importantly, he lives with honesty and integrity. He discovered that being real is more powerful than pretending to be perfect. Now let's take a look at a different kind of transformation, one that began on the runway. Kylie Bisutti was a Victoria's Secret model who seemed to have it all. At just 19, she was living the dream. She walked in fashion shows, posed for famous photographers, and had contracts worth millions. But something inside her started to change. As her faith in God grew stronger, she began to feel uncomfortable with the modeling lifestyle. She said that as a newlywed, she wanted her body to be something private for her husband, not something to be shown off to the world. Leaving the modeling industry wasn't easy. People didn't understand why she would walk away from so much money and fame. But Kylie knew she had to follow her heart. She realized that the beauty industry often encourages women to be objectified, and she no longer wanted to be part of that. She said, "I started to feel like I was losing who I was. I wanted to honor God and respect myself." So she quit modeling and began sharing her story. Today, she's a mother, author, and Christian speaker. She helps other young women see their worth through God's eyes, not the media's. Then there's Chris Pratt, a Hollywood A-lister known for blockbuster movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World. Chris has never been shy about talking about his faith. Whether it's during award speeches or interviews, he often mentions his belief in God and encourages others to pray and stay true to themselves. At one point, he even said, "God is real. You have a soul. God loves you." These words might sound simple, but in Hollywood, they're bold and risky. Chris faced criticism and even online hate because of his beliefs. Some accused him of being part of controversial churches or said he shouldn't mix faith with fame. But Chris stood firm. He said that he's not perfect, but he tries to live with faith and kindness. He uses his platform to spread positive messages and doesn't let public opinion shake his beliefs. He once said, "You just have to pray, listen, and follow your heart." Despite the pressure to stay quiet, Chris continues to speak up for what he believes in. Another brave voice is Candace Cameron Bure, best known for her role as DJ Tanner on Full House. She returned to TV in Fuller House and became a well-known face on family-friendly channels. But off-screen, Candace has been just as outspoken about her faith. She regularly talks about how God guides her decisions, both personally and professionally. She said, "My faith is the foundation of who I am. I can't separate that from anything else in my life." However, being a Christian in Hollywood isn't easy. Candace faced backlash for her beliefs, especially when she spoke about traditional values or declined roles that didn't align with her morals. Some people accused her of being judgmental or old-fashioned. But Candace didn't let it stop her. She said that she wants to live in a way that reflects her faith, even if it means walking away from certain opportunities. She's written books, hosted shows, and continued acting, but always on her own terms. For her, staying true to God matters more than fitting in. Then there's Denzel Washington, one of the most respected actors in the world. Denzel has openly talked about how his faith shapes his life. He reads the Bible daily, prays, and seeks God's direction for every decision. In interviews, he's shared how his success didn't come from talent alone, it came from God's grace. He often reminds young people to stay humble, pray, and trust in God's plan. Denzel once said, "Put God first in everything you do. Everything that I have is by the grace of God." Even though Denzel has won awards and starred in major films, he doesn't let Hollywood change his values. He chooses roles carefully and speaks with wisdom and humility. He mentors young actors and encourages them to stay grounded. Denzel's life is proof that you can be successful in the entertainment industry without losing your soul. Next, we have Mark Wahlberg. Known for tough roles and action-packed films, Mark has a surprising personal story. In his younger years, he had legal problems and lived a troubled life. But everything changed when he found his faith. Mark became a devout Catholic and now starts every day with prayer, mass, and reflection. He said that faith gave him a second chance and helped him become a better father, husband, and man. Mark has faced criticism for being outspoken about his beliefs, especially in an industry that often avoids religious topics. But he stands firm, saying, "I don't hide my faith. I need it every day." He has even created faith-based content and encourages people to pray and stay connected to God. For Mark, faith isn't just a part of his life, it's the reason he turned his life around. Finally, there's Tyler Perry, the creator of Media and a powerhouse in the film world. Tyler grew up in poverty and faced abuse as a child. He struggled for years before finally finding success. Through it all, he held on to his faith. Tyler talks openly about how prayer, forgiveness, and trusting God helped him rise above his past. He said, "Every good thing that has happened in my life is because of grace and favor." Today, Tyler uses his platform to uplift others. He builds studios, supports new talent, and gives back to his community. He includes messages of hope and faith in his work, even when it's not popular. Tyler believes that success without purpose is empty. He once said, "If I had listened to what people said I couldn't do, I wouldn't be here." But God had other plans. Each of these celebrities faced hard choices. They could have stayed silent about their faith to protect their careers. But instead, they chose to be honest and bold. They trusted that God had a bigger plan for them, even if it meant rejection or loss. Their stories show that fame and fortune can disappear in an instant, but the peace that comes from faith lasts forever. They prove that it's possible to live with integrity in an industry that often rewards compromise. Whether it's losing roles, speaking out, or changing careers, they remind us that choosing faith over fame might be hard, but it's always worth it. Because at the end of the day, no amount of applause can compare to the peace that comes from knowing you stayed true to yourself and to God. At the height of her modeling career, she made a decision that shocked everyone around her. She was working for one of the biggest names in the fashion world, Victoria's Secret. She was at the top, admired by many, earning big money, and living the kind of glamorous life that millions only dream about. But one day, she decided to walk away from it all. Her friends in the fashion industry were stunned. Her agents thought she had lost her mind. To them, she was throwing away a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, something people worked years to achieve. But for her, it wasn't about fame anymore. It wasn't about money. She had discovered something more valuable, something that changed her heart deeply. She had found faith. She explained her decision by saying she wanted to honor God more with her life. She believed she could set a better example for young girls if she lived a life aligned with her values rather than continuing in an industry that constantly focused on appearances. She wasn't saying others were wrong, but she was certain about what she wanted for herself. She felt this was the right thing to do, not just for her, but for the message she wanted to send to the world. She also admitted that walking away wasn't easy. She felt pressure from all sides. People expected her to keep doing what she had always done, to stay in that glamorous world. She felt the weight of those expectations. Even when she was still modeling for Victoria's Secret, she often felt torn. There was pressure then too, to look a certain way, to act a certain way, to sell a particular image. But now, she felt a different kind of pressure, the pressure to stay true to what she believed in. Despite all of that, she didn't look back. Her decision was final. She had found peace in her choice. She didn't want to be just a face on a billboard or someone who simply helped sell products. She wanted her life to stand for something deeper. She traded in her fame and fortune for meaning and purpose. And she made it clear that her choice was her own. She didn't judge others who continued down the same path she left. Her message was simple. This was her conviction, and she was at peace with it. But she wasn't the only one. She wasn't the only famous person who found faith in an unexpected way. Kathy Ireland, another name from the world of modeling, had once been one of the most well-known faces in the fashion industry. She was on the cover of Sports Illustrated for 13 years in a row. She was a supermodel, an actress, and a pop culture icon in the 1980s and 1990s. But underneath all the fame and attention, something felt off for her. By the world's standards, she had it all. But inside, she felt empty. She described that feeling openly. She said that even though she was successful and admired by many, something important was missing from her life. That missing piece, she realized, was her relationship with Jesus. Her journey to faith started with reading the Bible and studying Christian apologetics, the deep reasoning and understanding behind why people believe what they believe. As she started reading scripture, something inside her shifted. It wasn't about emotions anymore. It wasn't just about feeling good. It was about discovering the truth. The words she read changed her life. She said that from the moment she started reading, She knew she was holding something real in her hands, truth that went beyond anything she had ever known. That's when everything changed for her. Kathy found a new purpose. She started using her platform to speak up about issues that mattered to her, especially pro-life causes. It wasn't always easy. Speaking up about faith and values cost her some of her Hollywood friends. But she didn't stop. She knew that her mission was more important than staying popular. She didn't just talk about faith, she lived it. Over time, she built a billion-dollar business. And with the success she achieved, she began helping others. She supported crisis pregnancy centers and continued spreading her message, hoping to bring light into a world that often feels lost in darkness. Then there's Sean Astin. Most people know him as the lovable, loyal Samwise Gamgee from the Lord of the Rings movies. But what many don't know is that he comes from a Hollywood family. He's the son of famous actress Patty Duke and was raised in a very secular home. Religion wasn't a topic of conversation in his childhood. Belief in God wasn't something he grew up with. Acting was a big part of his life, but faith wasn't. That changed when he took on the role of Sam in the epic movie series based on J.R.R. Tolkien's books. Tolkien was a Christian, and his writings are filled with Christian themes: sacrifice, friendship, loyalty, and the battle between good and evil. While working on the movies, these themes began to affect Astin deeply. They made him think about things differently. They opened a door in his heart that he didn't know was there. This experience made him curious. He wanted to explore Christianity for himself. He didn't just skim the surface. He dove in. Together with his wife, he made the decision to read the entire Bible from start to finish. They chose the King James Version, and not only read it, but also listened to the famous audio version by Alexander Scourby. It wasn't just about reading words. They studied them. They highlighted passages. They took their time with every sentence. The story of Samwise, who helped carry Frodo to Mount Doom, ended up carrying Sean Astin to a relationship with Jesus Christ. He found something far more valuable than a career achievement. He found faith. Moving from Middle-earth to real-world action stars, Dennis Quaid had one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood during the 1980s. He starred in hit films like Top Gun, The Right Stuff, and Great Balls of Fire. He was successful, popular, and constantly in the spotlight. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. He later admitted to using up to 2 grams of cocaine a day. It was a dangerous lifestyle, one that was slowly destroying him. On the outside, he looked like he had everything. On the inside, he was empty and broken. He recalled one of the darkest moments in his life when his young son accidentally found his drug stash. That moment shook him to his core. It forced him to look at himself in the mirror. He described what happened next as a white light experience. He could suddenly see 2 possible futures, one where he was dead or in jail, and one where he made a change and found redemption. He chose life. He didn't want to lose everything. And more importantly, he didn't want to keep living like he was. Quaid had grown up in a Baptist family in Texas, but he had walked away from his faith when he entered Hollywood. He thought he didn't need it anymore. But in recovery, he found his way back not just to religion, but to a relationship with God. He started working on movies that reflected his faith, like I Can Only Imagine. He used his talent not to glorify himself, but to share stories that uplifted and inspired others. More than fame, he found something deeper. He found peace. And in his own words, he said that's what life is really about, not chasing things that disappear, but finding joy in the life God has given us. Kate Upton was another name everyone knew. She was the ultimate bombshell, the kind of model who graced the covers of Sports Illustrated, starred in films, and gathered millions of fans on social media. People admired her beauty. Her image was everywhere. But behind all of that, she wanted to be known for more than just her looks. She wanted people to see her soul. She wanted people to understand that there was more to her than her curves. She once shared a story about being at a photo shoot, wearing a small cross necklace that her mother had given her. It was meaningful to her, something that reminded her of her faith. But someone on the set made a joke about it. They mocked the idea that someone like her could be religious. Then, to make matters worse, they took the necklace away from her. That moment hurt her deeply. It made her realize how often people are judged for their beliefs. But instead of letting it break her, she made a bold choice. She got a small cross tattooed on her finger, something no one could take away from her again. She said that when getting a tattoo, you have to think hard about what will still matter to you in 10, 20, or even 50 years. For her, the answer was clear. Her relationship with God would always matter. She became proof that beauty isn't just about appearance. It's about what's inside a person. Her faith gave her strength. She didn't hide it. Not even in an industry that often tells people to keep their beliefs to themselves. She stayed true to who she was. Brooke Shields is another powerful example of someone who found faith after living through difficult experiences. She had been in the spotlight from a very young age. As a child actress, she was placed in roles that were far too mature for her. Her movie Pretty Baby sexualized her at an age when she should have been protected. She didn't get the chance to grow up normally. By her teenage years, she was already a global superstar. But with all that attention came a deep sense of confusion. She didn't really know who she was, and she didn't feel supported. She later described herself as just part of someone else's plan, a product being sold by people who only cared about money. She went through years of therapy, struggled with postpartum depression, and had to deal with a lot of personal pain. But through all of that, she found something unexpected. She found God. She admitted that faith brought her the peace she had been searching for her entire life. The little girl who had once been exploited by the entertainment industry had finally found freedom through faith. So what do all of these stories have in common? These celebrities come from different backgrounds. Some were models. Others were actors. Some grew up in faith but walked away. Others never knew it at all until later in life. But they all share something powerful. They chose to speak up about their relationship with God, even when it cost them friendships, jobs, or public approval. They discovered something that Hollywood couldn't give them: eternal purpose. They prove that faith can be found in the most unexpected places. That even in a world that often rejects God, people still hear His call. They prove that it's never too late to change direction. They remind us that success without peace is still emptiness. And they inspire others to look beyond fame and fortune, to consider what truly matters in life. So as these stories show, standing up for your faith isn't always easy, but for these people, it was absolutely worth it. They show the world that courage, conviction, and belief can change everything. They found something stronger than applause. They found truth.